So dissolving duality or seeing emptiness non-dualistically. So duality, let me explain this on from three angles. Duality versus non-duality from three angles. One, from the point of view of the Vedantic tradition. The second, from the point of view of the Chittamatra tradition. And third, from the point of view of the Madyamaka tradition, and particularly Prasangika Madyamaka tradition. First, the Vedantic tradition, non-duality. Okay, so while all these three traditions speak about non-duality, but how you understand non-duality is very different. Duality, we should not disrupt the meaning of duality. Duality meaning two, dual, two. What two? Subject and object. I'm seeing the flower is the object, and I am seeing it, I'm the subject. So there's the subject and the object. Object is not the subject, subject is not the object. So there are two things. That is duality. Now, according to Vedantic tradition, so the seer is the Atman. And what you see is the Maya. All those things that you see, they are all just Maya. And then through your spiritual realization, when you come to realize that all what you are interacting with, they're all just Maya, then it is metaphorically speaking, it is as though like the whole diversity of the Maya, they all dissolve into the Atman. So now there is no duality of the Maya and the Atman, no duality of subject and object. Everything simply dissolves into one thing, right? With respect to your perception. With respect to others' perception, still Maya and Atman, the Maya is still there. The duality is still there. But with respect to your perception, then the Maya simply dissolves to be Maya. They dissolve into the ultimate reality, which is the Atman. Okay. This says, so from this understanding, then the connotation of the duality or the connotation of non-duality, it makes total sense. Because now at that point, there's no object with which you interact as an object. So it is just whether you call it object or subject, it's just one thing. Two is dissolved. That is non-duality from the Vedantic tradition point of view. And particularly in relation to the two truths, which the Vedantic tradition explains, seems to be very close with the Buddhist concept of the two truths. So when you go to a certain height, only then from there you see the distance, you see the difference. Whereas if you are just down, way down, and then you are looking at the top, so these 2 points, look, my two hands, they are going closer and as though like they're converging. And then at a certain point you reach there, and if you're down there, you will see that these two are joined. In actuality, they are not joined. So say this is Vedantic tradition, this is Buddhist tradition, and then you, beneath from there, if you look at the two traditions, they seem like they're converging. And then at that point, from way down, you will see that these two are joining. In actuality, they are not joined. So behind this point, they go like this. It's like this. So behind this point, then they go into such a big difference. But at a certain point, you see that these two are very similar to the extent that you might say that, oh, this is exactly identical. Converging, right? Okay. Now, this is the understanding of non-duality from the Vedantic tradition. Now, from the point of view of the
Advaita tradition, non-duality, which is posited by Shankaracharya.
Exactly. This what I'm explaining according to Shankaracharya.
There's also the other dimension where there is the Paramatman, which is the divine, and you are the Atman. And when you so realize that you merge into the Paramatman.
This is exactly what I'm saying. You know, Atman and the Paramatman. Paramatman is like the main source. And then the individual Atmans, they merge with the Paramatman along with all the other Mayas. Right? This is understanding. Okay. Now, what is the second version?
Chittamatra.
Chittamatra. According to Chittamatra, the duality, non-duality or the duality. First, we have to understand what duality is. Say, we came from outside or we came from inside. We came from outside into ChoeKhorSumLing center. We came from outside. So now the duality from Chittamatra point of view, the duality is in the form of outside and inside. Outside is not the inside. Inside is not outside. There are two things. That is the duality. And what is that inside? From Chittamatra point of view, inside is the mind. And all other things which are non-mind, they are the outside. So there's a duality between the inside and outside. That is duality. Now, as you reach the level of the non-duality according to Chittamatra, what happens is that you realize that all what you see as outside, all what you see as external, they are simply your mental fabrication. It's simply your mental deception. There is no external as such. What is really existent is just the internal. It's just mind. So at that point of the realization, then you see that there is no duality between the external and the internal. There is no duality, right? So mind is the subject and external objects as the external or the object. When you reach that level of understanding, that all externality that you see, they are simply the deceptive perception of your own mind. When you reach that level, then we see that you realize that externality dissolves, in the sense that you realize that there's no more externality, it's just inside, the internal, which is the mind, the subject. So again, the subject, everything dissolves into the subject. So the subject-object duality dissolves. So that is the understanding of the non-duality from the point of view of Chittamatra. Now from the point of view of what?
Prasangika.
Madyamika, and particularly Prasangika. Madyamika, particularly Prasangika. There, the duality is as what we explained according to Advait Vedanta. Right? Say the subject and the object. Subject and the object. Now, unlike what Advait Vedanta says, according to Madyamika, there's no one source as such. There's no one source as such to which all others merge. There's no one source as such. In fact, from the Prasangika point of view, sourcelessness is the ultimate reality. Sourcelessness is the ultimate reality. If you could remember what we said last time, not seeing anything on the ultimate domain is seeing the ultimate, seeing the supreme. Not seeing anything on the ultimate domain is seeing the supreme. This is what we said, right? So from that point of view, we see that say in a loose sense, there's an object, and then you are the subject. There's the object-subject duality. And then when you realize the understanding that what I'm seeing as objectively real there, what I'm seeing as myself, as the objectively real, as the subject, these are all deceptive. Then in that experience of the ultimate domain, then not only the Maya dissolves, Maya and everything dissolves. So there is no basis left at all. There is no basis left at all for the duality. For the duality, there should be two things. According to Advait Vedanta, there's one thing left. The duality dissolves because the pair is gone. For the pair, there should be two things. Only one thing is left, the main source, right, is left, and the other side is gone. So therefore, because there's only one, there's no duality. Whereas according to the Madyamika Madyamika philosophy, the duality for the pair, both sides dissolve. Both sides dissolve, so therefore there is no duality. That is according to Madyamika tradition. But then the question is, how is it that both sides dissolve? How can we be convinced that each of them, both sides, how is it that we can be convinced that they are dissolved? So this is what is not to be taken blindly, what is not to be taken on belief. It must be realized through rational reasoning. right? This is the difference. Okay. Now, another thing I like to share with you here is particularly the difference between the Chittamatra understanding and the Madyamika understanding. This is so important. Chittamatra's understanding of the non-duality and the Madyamika's understanding of the non-duality. And Madyamika in the context of Prasangika in particular. For Chittamatra, it is more like same. It is more like the mirror and the image in the mirror. Mirror is your mind, and the image in the mirror is all the objects we see as external. How many of you have banged against a mirror? Okay. Rolf, you banged against a mirror?
Oh, banged against mirror.
You want to break the mirror? Huh? No, I'm talking about mirror, not the glass. Why did you bang against the mirror? You want to break it? You are angry about that person? And Shanti? You are angry with the hotel or whatever? Why did you break the mirror? Why did you go to break the mirror?
No, by accident. That's
accident, yeah. So what made you have the accident?
Somebody behind him could have been there.
What made you have the accident? What made you have the accident? Because you thought that what you were seeing there is really there beyond the point of the mirror. You don't see that as a mirror. Whatever reflection that you see in the mirror, you see them as so real, right? And you think that there's a space where you can walk further beyond this point. Then you go beyond and then you bang against the mirror, right? Okay, so in short, you saw whatever image that you saw in the mirror, you saw them to be so real, as so external from the mirror, right? So, if this is happening to the mirror, then our mind is like the mirror, and all what we are seeing, they are like the reflection on the mirror of the mind. So, is there now, after banging, and then you come out, if the mirror is not broken, then if you look at the mirror, then you realize that what is there is not the external object, this is a mirror. You'll realize that, right? Once you realize that, then you will see that, oh, these are not the real objects. These are the reflections in the mirror. Likewise, our mind is like a mirror, and all what we are seeing, they are like the reflections in your own mind. And yet, we see them as totally separate from our mind. This is a deception. Because of this deception, people bang against the mirror, right? They have some problems. Likewise, because of this deception, seeing things as so external, then we are trapped in all problems. So, in short, according to Chittamatra, how things exist and how your mind exists is simply like the mirror, your mind like the mirror, and all other things like the reflection in the mirror. So now tell me, the mirror and the reflection in the mirror, can they be separated? They cannot be separated. So you cannot say that this is the image, this is the mirror. You cannot separate the two. Because you cannot separate the two, they are seen as one. There is no duality. This is according to Chittamatra. Now according to Madyamika, a particular Prasangika Madyamika, all what we interact, the things that exist, according to Prasangika Madyamika, they do exist external reality. Keep that in mind. Chittamatra rejects external reality, but according to the highest Buddhist school, external reality exists. And yet, everything is created, everything is imputed by our own mind. Okay, can you resolve this problem? Everything is what your subjective mind creates, one.
Dependent arising.
Then number two is that things exist externally. Chittamatra says that no, things are all coming from your mind, therefore there is no external reality, right? It's very convincing for us. Very convincing. Things are all coming from your mind, therefore there is no external reality. It's very convincing. Whereas Madhyamika, they are so bold enough to say something very different. And perhaps for many people could be controversial even. That on the one hand saying that everything is coming from your mind. Everything is projected by your mind. At the same time they say that things exist as external. Externality is there. So how can you resolve this problem? Okay. Is there any one person who will attempt to give the answer? Anyone?
Realizing that they are inherently exist.
No, the point is that...
Imputed by the mind.
No, what I'm saying is that people who are beginners or someone who is a beginner should be convinced of what you are saying. Right? Okay, what I'm saying is that on the one hand, they say that there is no inherent existence. Everything is coming from your mind. On the other hand, they say that externality is there. So how can you resolve this paradox? When you say that everything is coming from your mind, everything is coming from the mind, then it's all subjective. If there is no subject, if everything is subjective, then it's not objective. If it is not objective, how can they be external? Now, this is a question. Yes, Shanti?
Somehow the argument of dependent origination should resolve this.
So finally, the understanding of interdependency should resolve this problem. Very good. Very good. Okay, then the question is, how? How does this understanding of interdependency or dependent origination will help us solve this problem? But then that should be the one which has to be employed, understanding of which will solve our problem. Yes, Rolf?
So they are mutually dependent on each other. The object is dependent on subject and subject is dependent on the object.
So if the object depends on subject, then how can they be the externality?
It seems like there's a dualism over there. Then, if there is an externality and
then there's a duality there. If the duality is there, how can you speak about the non-duality according to Madyamaka, right? Okay, this is Rolf gives the answer and he saw his own problem. Right? Duality is there.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Yes?
One can give an example of the cards which we make a building out of cards.
Yes.
So what we do is we take two cards and then we keep them like this, and two cards like this, and then we make a building out of it. Now these two cards, they cannot stand. They can stand only when one card is and other card is there. Both are there.
So these two are mutually supporting.
Yeah, they're mutually. Yeah.
If one breaks, the other one automatically falls.
So then there is no building. So one and other both dependent on each other.
That's fine.
They create a building.
How does this help you to understand that there is externality?
Yeah. So that building is not there when both are not there.
Yes.
But when both are there, there is a building. Huh?
Yes. So
there is externality of the building.
How?
But with individual card, there is no externality of the building.
If things are coming from purely from the subject, how can they be the object? How can they be the externality? I understand this. So with these two things, when these two are together, then the building is there. And if one is not working, other will fall. Right?
And no building.
Then there's no building. Right? So in what way this analogy works to understand that everything is purely subjective, still things do exist as external. In what way it helps?
It helps because the building has to be recognized that there is a building.
Yes.
It cannot be negated that there is no building. There is a building. But then when we see each of the cards, there is no building.
Huh?
When we see the cards individually, there is no building.
Meaning separately?
Yes.
Yes, I understand it.
Okay. So if we see, so in order to get the building is the projection made by some component. So that way you can see that building exists, but it actually doesn't exist.
Okay, Ranagaru, what you do is that I'll tell you one thing. after this class or tomorrow, you try to meet someone and tell him that this is a question asked in the class, right? And I give this answer. See if you understand it. You try to explain it, and finally the original question is that answered, and if the wow, it's very much, and then you're on the right track. Whereas if the other person, no, I can't do what you gave, what you said, answer that you gave is the analogy, right? So finally, this analogy should be used to understand answer the main question. So how to relate this analogy to the main question? So keep in mind, the main question is, according to Madyamaka, everything is subjectively imputed. There's nothing from the object. One. Now, the seemingly contradictory statement, while everything is coming from the subjective mind, there still exists external reality. If there exists external reality, how can that be subjectively real? How not objectively real? This is the question. Yes, Saket?
Oh, but if there's no external reality, there will be nothing for you to posit anything on. There's no basis for the subjective. It's necessary that there is something for us to posit a labeling on, posit a reasoning on, posit something on. There has to be something that existed before.
In the dream, there is no external reality.
It's external to the mind.
In the dream, there is no external reality.
Suppose that it is external to the mind.
No, in the dream, no.
It's external to the mind, like not.
The dream is the example which is given by the Chittamatras to convince Prasangikas that things can exist even without externality. And the Madyamikas, they ask Chittamatras, what example do you have? Then example that they give is the dream. So for that we have to study Madyamika avatar. Madyamika avatar, there's all these discussions, dialogues, debates going between the Chittamatra school and the Prasangika school, right? So this is the area which we have to take for granted that you understand it. That the dream is the example where you see things as the external as things as externally real. But then when you wake up, we see that, oh, this is just my mind. There's no externality in the dream. It's just my mind in the dream, right? This is, no, don't just say thing. What I'm saying,
consciousness is dream.
Just listen. No, what I'm saying is that example Chittamatra gave, say first Chittamatra says that everything is coming from the mind. So therefore there is no external reality. You're getting it?
Yes.
Then the Prasangikas, they come. Acharya Chandragiti, particularly Acharya Chandragiti comes. Then he said, okay, if you tell me that things are all coming from your mind and there is no external reality, right? And things do exist, but things are empty of external reality. First of all, give me an example. Give me an example which can convince me that, okay, that's true. Mind is there, external seems to be so real, but it's deceptive. What example do you have? This is the question precisely asked by Chittamatra, by Acharya Chandragiti to the Chittamatras. Then the Chittamatra, in the text itself, Acharya Chandragiti quoted the Chittamatra's answer that dream is the example. And only if you understand the dream so well that in the dream you get the impression that everything's so real outside there, external meaning outside. Outside there, the moment you wake up, you are disillusioned with your own dream. Nothing was there. It was just my dream. There's no external thing there. It was all just my mind in the dream. So this is what is accepted both by Chittamatras and the Madyamikas, right? With that in mind, then Madyamikas, they give further rejection with regard to the reasonings they give with regard to the mind, saying that there is no external reality, but the mind exists truly. So then the Madyamaka, they reject the mind existing truly on the basis of this example. They did not reject that what you had in the dream What you saw in the dream is not external, as said by Chittamatra. Madhyamika accepted that, right? So we have to study Madyamika avatar so well. Madyamika avatar is amazingly brilliant text to tease apart, to give you such a cutting-edge understanding of the Prasangika view. Okay, so now let me give you one example of how the Prasangika would give the answer, while everything is coming from the mind, but still there is external reality, right? Okay, let me give you an analogy which I've already given you twice, which I already said twice in the class, I remember, in this very time. So, the movie projector and the projected movie. Where is the projected movie? Here. Where is the movie projector? Behind you, right? So, the movie projected movie, is that the projector? What you are seeing, what the movie that you are watching, is that the projector? Movie projector, is that? That is not the movie projector. Movie projector is behind you and you are looking in front of you. So the movie is seen in front of you. So there you see that there is a gap in distance. You see the gap? Projector and the movie. Movie projector and the movie. Do you see a gap in distance? Gap in distance is known as external reality. Gap in distance. When there's gap in terms of distance, the mirror and the reflection in the mirror, is there a gap in distance? There's no gap in distance. You see the gap in distance, that is distortion. That is mistaken, right? That is a misconception. Whereas should there be a gap between the distance, there is a gap in terms of distance between the subject and the object, that is known as externality. That is known as external reality, right? So, according to Prasangika, the movie that you are watching, that is projected by the projector behind you. So the projector and the projector is your subject, and the movie that you're watching is like the object. So this movie is not coming from the screen, it is coming from the projector. This movie is coming from the projector, but the movie is not there on the projector, it is on the screen. So the movie and the projector of this movie, these two, they are separated by distance. So that is known as externality of the movie. And yet, external is there. At the same time, this object which, in this context, which is the movie, that is not coming from the screen. It is coming from where? From the projector. So therefore, everything is projected by a mind. At the same time, there is externality. This is Prasangika's answer, right? Analogy that Prasangikas give. So likewise, finally, after rejecting objective existence, how we see things as so real, when you come to realize that nothing is, how I see things as so real, it is deceptive. Once you see the emptiness, once you get the experience of the emptiness, then slowly see how you can see everything as simply coming from your mind. So this understanding, how things come to existence by the power of my mind, and still things do exist as external, internal, you should be able to bring about the harmony of the functionality of the external and internal world with your mind as the subject. So that part is something which we need to work on after understanding the emptiness, right? Okay. Functionality is that if you are hungry, by eating food, though your hunger disappears. When you're thirsty, you drink water. You don't be exposed in the heat. You drink water, and the thirst will disappear. So this is the functionality. So the functionality and emptiness, there is no contradiction. Before understanding emptiness, people tend to get the impression that emptiness and functionality, these two are dichotomous. These two are contradictory. Right? Okay, yes?
I'll give another of my examples. Please refute if it is not correct. There is a boy who is carrying a reel of string and a kite. That is all in his hand. So now the kite, the string and the boy is one. Now the boy flies the kite, it's evening, people cannot see the string, but they can see the kite. So they see the kite as actually
Independent.
Yeah, it is there. But in reality, the string and the kite is one thing.
The boy is controlling the string is the string roller that is controlling the kite.
Yes.
But people don't see the connection.
They don't see the string.
They see the kite as
They see the
independent
kite
in the air.
In the air.
Yeah.
So the kite has been projected by this boy, which is there in the sky. And when people see it, because they cannot see the string, they see the kite as actually flying by itself. But it's a projection of the boy. And when the boy takes the kite down, now there is no separation of kite and the boy. The boy, as it was beginning, the boy was with the string and was with the kite. So, is this example a little closer to?
So you have to create at the fifth philosophical school the blend of Chittamatra and Madyamika. Blend of Chittamatra and Madyamika. The first part is closer towards Madyamika. So when you bring it back, then this is Chittamatra's closer towards Chittamatra. So you're bringing a blend of the two, or shortcut. The two schools merge together. Very good, yeah. So in fact, we should be critical. We should be what do you call it? Creative in our thinking. This is very helpful. At the same time, all these examples, analogies that you get, you should be able to apply this to the actual understanding. Yes,
Rob? I could be mistaken, so I wanted you to tell me, so you said there's a gap between the projector
Distance
and the
gap.
projected.
Distance gap. Gap in distance.
Gap in distance. So,
Yeah.
is that related with emptiness?
No.
Really? No.
It's a literal gap.
Oh, it's a literal gap.
Literally, it's a gap. Meaning that
Okay.
you are there.
Uh-huh.
If I'm sitting next to you, you will not shout this much.
Right.
You will not, you will not shout that loud.
Yeah.
Because you know that I'm at distance,
Okay.
you shout. Whereas if you know that I'm just sitting next to you, if you shout, then I may think that, oh, Rolf is now angry towards me. But at this distance, when you shout, oh, he's so kind to me, to make sure that I hear something what you say, right? So this is a clear indication that there's a literal distance gap there, right? So this gap is the gap in distance. So gap in distance is known as the externality. Whereas according to Chittamatra, the gap that we see between two of us, this is deception.
Okay. So based on that gap is where the functionality comes in.
Okay, now according to Chittamatra, there's no gap in the distance. Still, there's a functionality. They explain functionality while rejecting the gap in distance. Whereas Prasangika argues that if you reject gap in distance, if you reject externality, you cannot account for the functionality. You're getting it? This is the argument from Prasangika towards Chittamatra. Okay, any questions?